Turn around there. There we go. Okay. Hey, everybody. I am live here, and just as you know the drill, setting things up. Welcome to Zenny62 on YouTube. And just before we officially get going with our guest, I'm going to make one little correction to the clarity of the lens. Thank you for the thumbs up. I believe that was Barry Lee. Make sure that's clear. And let's see here. That will work. Hey, Alessandro, how are you? Welcome. And yes, there we are. Donald Richardson, you're back. Haven't seen you in a long time. Folks, we have a special guest. I'm going to bring it all down and get started because he is on a time limit because he's got to get ready for the NFL draft. But before I do here, we're going to go to events, go to the control room, switch here, sweat things up. The stream is good, so we are excellent. And as Batman would say, batteries to power, turbines to speed. You remember that, Jim?
Barely, but I what are you doing over there? Technology is just, I have no idea what you're doing.
Oh, I'm setting up the meta.
Could be the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm setting up the meta tags and actually tweeting this out.
Sure you are.
Okay. And making sure that this is going on, and so Raiders, and so YouTube, and then I'm putting hashtag Rams, and there we go, and putting that, and there. Okay, now we're there, and then I'm moving this up, going back to Skype. There's Jim over there. There's everybody on the right, and we are ready. Folks, it is my honor to introduce a 22-year NFL veteran of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the legendary Jim Thomas. Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Zenny. How are you?
I'm thanks. I'm quite excited. Jim has covered the Rams, and he also was the first to report on the lawsuit regarding the city and county of St. Louis against the NFL and the Rams. So this is a special night for everybody. To be able to have him on and talk about this issue from his grand and glorious high perspective. Jim, first of all, tell us, or give us some, for those people who may be watching this for the first time or are watching this for the first time but aren't really exactly familiar, they should be. How did St. Louis lose the Rams from your perspective before we talk about the lawsuit?
Well, the out clause was a first-tier clause that was in the original lease when the team moved to St. Louis in 1995 from Los Angeles. Part of the stadium lease called for the stadium to be in the top tier, or first tier, which meant top 8 stadiums, and it would be measured every 10 years. Well, the first 10 years, the stadium was pretty new. The team was pretty successful. Georgia basically gave St. Louis a mulligan. She didn't even try to measure it against against first tier standards. Well, by the time the second 10 years came along, there was a new owner, Stan Kroenke, and he insisted on it, the letter of the law. Now, exactly how they measured it in terms of what is a first tier stadium, I couldn't tell you all the categories, but it's obvious there are so many new stadiums that have been built since the Edward Jones Dome opened. It was then called the Trans World Dome. Opened in 1995. You knew that it wasn't going to be the first-tier standards. There have been palaces built. I contend that the Rams, in relocating to St. Louis in this new stadium and having just a very favorable lease for ownership. I remember the late Bud Adams of the Houston Oilers at an NFL owners meetings when they were discussing the potential move of the Rams to St. Louis, said, yeah, we'd all like the St. Louis lease. There was even a name for it. It was called the St. Louis lease. So anyway, that was the out clause. At least that allowed the Stan Kroenke and the Rams to go year to year after an arbitration procedure. But in terms of, and the arbitrators ruled that basically they needed a new stadium. Now, the Edward Jones Dome isn't falling apart, but again, it's not top tier. Well, not many cities can afford a brand new stadium, and that began a process in which some civic leaders led by Dave Peacock, former Anheuser-Busch executive, and Bob Blitz, a Clayton attorney, well-known firm. Clayton's a suburb of St. Louis, and a well-known attorney with a well-known law firm. They tried to get the stadium built, and they got pretty far along. I mean, $400 million of public dollars. Now, that doesn't sound like much compared to Las Vegas terms, but you got to realize they weren't building a $2 billion stadium. It was, I think, $1.1 billion and some change. So it was a pretty good amount of public money. They even got a stadium rights deal for like $158 million with the local National Car Rental, which is headquartered here in St. Louis. And traditionally, that money almost all goes to ownership. So they're even making Stan Kroenke more money with the stadium deal. And it turned out not to be enough. I remember in December of 2016, or I guess it would have been 2015, excuse me, Zenny, Robert McNair, chairman of the finance committee, owner of the Houston Texans, in an interview with the Houston Chronicle. So it wasn't an interview with us. He wasn't playing to an audience. He said, he was quoted saying, St. Louis, they're pretty close to having a good deal here. And almost ever since he said that, things went downhill and downhill in a hurry. Eric Rubin came on local radio and dissed the St. Louis project. Roger Goodell sent a letter to St. Louis saying that their project didn't meet standards and that the league would rule that the Rams met relocation standards. And that was kind of the high watermark when Robert McNair said that St. Louis was pretty close. It was like things went downhill from there. There are people in St. Louis, and that's kind of the gist of the lawsuit, that feel that this was rigged from the start for LA, that in not only getting a franchise back in Los Angeles, but getting it built without any public money, without the league having to put anything in except for the stadium fund dollars. That St. Louis was viewed as just acceptable collateral damage. Okay, we may upset some people in St. Louis, but we're going to get a new stadium in LA. And so there you are, that infamous day in Houston, January 12th of 2016, a 5-1 committee vote in favor of the Carson plan, which would have had the Raiders and, as you know, San Diego there.
Yep.
In the matter of a few hours, turned into a 30-2 vote in favor of the Rams relocating to Los Angeles.
We were both in Houston when that happened. That was yeah. What was your reaction to Kroenke's? I remember when you guys from the St. Louis media kind of hoarded on him, and it was almost like he was frozen. It was almost robotic to me.
You mean you're talking about the press conference?
Yeah.
Well, I was actually in the lobby. We had David Hunn, a member of our staff, who ironically enough now works for the Houston Chronicle. He was upstairs at the press conference. I was downstairs as the owners dashed out of the lobby to their limousines and their private jets to leave town because the meeting was over. Yeah. Now, I later saw excerpts and stuff from the press conference, especially what Stan Kroenke said. Yeah, it was strange. His reaction was strange. He tried to kid around, I think, with a St. Louis TV reporter. To me, it came off as very awkward. You have to keep in mind, Zenny, he had not talked. That was the first time he talked to any St. Louis media since January of 2012.
Wow.
Jeff Fisher hiring press conference. So you can, talk about all you want about what happened in San Diego and Oakland, and I get that, but at least you could talk to Mark Davis. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you could at least, if maybe not Dean Spanos, you could talk to people in the Chargers organization. We still don't know Stan Kroenke's thoughts on all this. Obviously, we have a pretty good feeling with there, but he's never spoken to St. Louis one bit during this whole process or afterwards about his reason for leaving.
I think you got a lot of dim-off. And
yes.
And hey, so can you talk, because I know just with respect to your time here, talk about the lawsuit, and then we can work backward from there. What's the lawsuit all about?
Well, 52 pages. It was filed Wednesday in St. Louis Circuit Court. Obviously, pun intended, they wanted a home court advantage. They wanted it potentially, if it goes to a jury trial, in front of likely a jury that will empathize with them or be favorable. They didn't want it on a neutral court or somewhere else. So it was filed in St. Louis until maybe a day or two before the lawsuit I had no idea it was coming. I mean, there had been no talk of a lawsuit.
Wow.
The city, in terms of stadium plan, the whole effort was in trying to get an MLS team here, an expansion team in St. Louis. And you may have heard there was a vote actually in the city, and it was defeated, narrowly defeated, but still defeated nonetheless. So that had kind of been the focus there. And so it surprised a lot of people, even myself, when the lawsuit was filed. The first question everybody asking about that is, what took you so long? 15 months. It's filed 15 months to the day, April 12th of 2017, as opposed to January 12th, 2016, of the relocation vote. None of the attorneys or people involved with the lawsuit have talked to me about that, or at this point are willing to talk about it. It's, in a way, it's kind of understandable with a lawsuit. You're playing it close to the vest. But I think partly maybe they wanted to see, let's see how San Diego and Oakland plays out. Let's see how the league treats them. So they wanted to let that play out. Also, a matter of who's going to pay for the lawsuit. I mean, it's going to be several $1 million. We all know how the league lawyers up. We all know how the league tries to string these things out, mount up the legal fees. They're going to test St. Louis's will in this lawsuit. And St. Louis has already spent over $16 million in terms of land clearance and the land assembly, the architects, the legal experts, so on and so forth, and the planners. And the attorneys involved, the two law firms that are involved, have agreed to do it on a contingency basis. So they don't get any money unless they win. And so obviously that helps. It's not like, like most cities, it's not like St. Louis City is flowing with money that they don't know what to do with. And the other thing is, and you can probably relate to this too, just politically, getting the various political entities to agree even on, is the sun rising in the east or the west? You know what I mean?
That's
so
true,
you have
yeah.
St. Louis City, St. Louis County, they're separate political entities. And then that RSA, the Regional Convention and Stadium Complex Authority, that has a state entity in it, and it represents all three state, county, and city. So you had to get all of them to agree to it. And then also, it's a matter of political will. Do we really want to jump in the water? Do we really want to do this? Do we really want to take on the NFL? And they decided to do so. Now, the lawsuit itself, 52 pages. I've read basically all of it. It not only is suing the NFL, but it's suing all 32 owners are mentioned there. And it really hits to 2 points. One, that the relocation guidelines were a sham, that the league gave us the impression, and I thought gave them the impression very strong early, that, boy, these relocation guidelines, they're chiseled in stone.
Yep.
We're going to pay attention to them. They're very important.
Yep.
And then kind of as a process went along, again, from a St. Louis perspective, then all of a sudden it was, well, they're not really rules. They're kind of a policy. And then Eric Grubman at the town hall meeting, you remember the town hall meeting in Oakland, right?
Oh, yeah.
At St. Louis's version of that, he said, well, really the relocation guidelines are whatever the owners say they are. So right then, and St. Louisans, I guess, were so convinced that they were going to hold the league to this, when they had fans, at the town hall go up and make statements or ask questions to Eric Grubman and the other officials there. I bet at least a half a dozen were reading from the relocation guidelines.
Yeah.
They had them in their hands or reading from it. So, again, that's one part of the suit. The other part, and the one that I think might be more telling, is there are 3 pages, Zenny, listing what in the lawsuit are referred to as false representations. You and I would call them lies. I think. False representations by Stan Kroenke, Roger Goodell, mainly Kevin Demoff. Just statement after statement over the course of this, where Kevin Demoff says, well, I'd say it's a 1 in a million chance that we're moving. No, we want to build a winner here. We want to make sure the Rams are here in 2020, 2030. He also said when the original land purchase was made in Inglewood, before all the adjoining land was purchased, he said, no, it's not a good site for a stadium. You can't build a stadium here. And another statement that he made was, Stan is involved in numerous real estate projects. I promise you, none of them have to do with the stadium. Well, we all saw what happened there. And I think even more damaging, after the fact, after the relocation vote, the LA Times had an interview with Stan Kroenke and Demoff. I believe it was on Demoff's private jet flying back to LA. You know, Kroenke has long had a place in Malibu. And from the meeting where Kroenke and Demoff talked about the fact that in as early as summer of 2013, Stan Kroenke called Kevin Demoff early in the morning saying, I found the site. I found the ideal stadium site. This is going to work. And he was referring to Inglewood. Meanwhile, publicly, before 2013, after 2013, all St. Louis was getting were positive things, encouragement to build a stadium. We want to be here. And, you know, the statements, the LA Times statements, it makes it seem like, well, no, not really. You were working on this LA stadium thing much, much harder than you were working on St. Louis. One other thing I'll add there, and it's in the lawsuit, Jeff Fisher, you may remember the interview after he was fired by the Rams in 2016.
Yep.
He said that he knew when he was hired, that Kroenke was planning to move the team. Now, I wrote in January of 2012, about a week before Fisher was hired, quoting a source who knew Fisher very well, that at an interview with Kroenke in Denver, that Fisher was taken aback by the fact he was asked several questions by Stan Kroenke. What was it like moving the Houston Oilers? How did you handle this? How did you handle that? And Fisher was a little freaked out by it. It's like, geez, this guy's planning on moving the team. This was January of 2012. And so I wrote it as a source story. Then December of 2016, after Fisher's hired, I think he appeared on Fox TV or something, maybe a pregame show or something.
Pregame, yeah.
Now, he didn't elaborate much, but he basically said that. He basically said that he knew from that job interview that was going to happen. So, you know, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how it's reconciled, but you have a whole bunch of statements trying to reassure St. Louis and say we're staying here, and then you have what actually happened, backed up now by some statements where they had no plan whatsoever to stay in St. Louis.
Hey, folks, this is Jim Thomas of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch talking about the St. Louis City and County lawsuit. Moderators and viewers, you have questions, please put them. I know Bill McKinney has one. I'm going to modify it a little bit because he asks, why would the lawyers take it on a contingency? But I'm going to add to that. I read that case too as well, Jim, and it looks like $1 billion case. So
really, yeah.
You know,
well, and that's interesting because they point out certain revenue that they've lost, that they spent over $16 million. But yeah, I guess if you add it up, maybe you get there. But it would be a lot of money. But they do not specify what they're looking for precisely in damages.
And that's why, because I think one of our Oaktown Raiders says St. Louis. He says St. Louis sounds like they have a legitimate lawsuit, and it sounds like they're just looking to get paid. Rams will never return to St. Louis. Out of the three teams, Rams are the only team back where they belong. Well, I don't know about that, but the whole point is that I do know that the lawsuit states that, in fact, I actually disagree with the whole back where they belong because that's up to debate, but the lawsuit states, you're welcome. The lawsuit states, among other things, that the Rams increased in franchise value by $700 million. And it said that they were seeking to some relief with respect to profiting. And if you put those together, that means they're basically seeking $700 million on top of everything else. And when I read that, I went, "Ho!" I mean, that's what came out to me. How is it? Do you think they have a chance? Have you talked to any legal people?
You know, I have not yet, and I plan to. I've read some stuff, and there have been some people that think they may have a chance. These things are hard to predict. We know the NFL. I don't think they've ever lost a relocation-related suit. But this, as you know, this relocation is so different from other relocations.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like the Baltimore Colts loaded the vans in the middle of the night and moved to Indianapolis. You had the league intimately involved with this. They were almost orchestrating the thing.
Yeah.
They, supervising the thing with Eric Grubman, encouraging all the cities. St. Louis got nothing in talking with Dave Peacock and the people involved over the court. They got nothing but encouragement from the league. Yeah, keep going. You're doing great. We like your plan, blah, blah, blah. I think people in St. Louis had the league and had Stan Kroenke just said, hey, we have a chance to move to LA, to the nation's second largest market, in a palace of a stadium. You better come up with a tremendous offer or we're out of here. Now, that may have been tough to deal with by St. Louis. They still wouldn't have been happy, but at least they would have known what was coming. St. Louis really feels like it was misled.
Yep.
And to the notion that the Rams are back where they belong, well, Zenny, I would counter with saying that would be Cleveland. Yep. They started as the Cleveland Rams.
Yeah,
they spent a decade in Cleveland.
Yeah.
LA, and I feel bad. I felt bad when the Rams came here from LA in '95. It's not a good business for these franchises to be moving, to be stealing franchises. St. Louis lost out on the expansion bid, and so they said, well, we couldn't earn one in terms of expansion. We're going to go out and steal one.
Mm-hmm.
But LA didn't have a $400 million plan of public money back then.
Nope.
They didn't have $158 million naming rights. I covered it back then. I covered it. I talked to Lee Steinberg about it many times. Well, this past September, Lee Steinberg was kind of trying to lead whatever effort that LA had back then. But even in this September, I talked to
Lee's
Lee.
a good friend of mine.
Jim.
Yeah.
Huh?
Lee's a good friend of mine.
And he said, the Rams are back in LA, not because of anything LA did, but because the league wants them there and Stan Kroenke wanted to be there.
Hey, we're comparing notes because we've been covering this. What's interesting, and this was brought out by ESPN, but it's hammering home what I already knew. Mark Davis wanted to move to Vegas as far back as 2014. But here's the thing, Jim. At the NFL annual meeting this year, he gets up on the podium and says that after the lease was signed, because his claim was the rent was jacked up, then they started looking for a new home. Well, I was there when he signed the lease. That was April 7th of 2016 at the Coliseum. I found and posted a UNLV announcement that was on Scrib, and is on Scrib too, placed by Aubrey. Aubrey's last name just keeps slipping my mind. But it was posted on January 28th of 2016, and the announcement was that UNLV President Lynn Jessup was going to meet with the Oakland Raiders and Las Vegas Sands because the Raiders were seeking a new home, which means that Davis lied, okay? And he's done that before. So, my thought is...
I remember him at the owners' meetings in 2016, so this would have been late March, just telling me almost offhandedly, well, I really like Las Vegas. I'm thinking of moving there.
Wow.
I don't know if it was even that. I don't know if it was out there that much. This would be a year ago March, not this March, but a year ago March. So
see, that adds to it. Oh, Jim, you're going to be on the court stand. We both will. Hey, here's the thing, though. How has St. Louis responded? I'm dying to ask this question before I get to the Raiders angle, but how does St. Louis responded to losing the Rams? Do people watch NFL games? And the reason I ask is because I have said to the NFL people that you're losing, by my estimation, 20 million households who really don't care to watch you anymore.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. The larger issue here, Zenny, is how is this good for business to abandon three top, I don't know where exactly San Diego is, but three top 25 markets, basically. Obviously, Oakland, the Bay Area, is like the sixth largest market.
Mm-hmm.
So in 15 months' time, 1/10 of the league has changed addresses. How can this be good for business? And as you mentioned, you're alienating millions of fans. Well, the ratings were, I guess, okay. I'll tell you this. The ratings were better in St. Louis over the course of the season than they were in LA.
Wow.
How about that? First year for the Rams back in LA since 1994, and the ratings were better in St. Louis. Although they weren't great. I think they were somewhere in the nines, and they were well more than double that during even some bad football. Yeah, we had the greatest show on turf. That was, as the kids say, that was a minute ago. That was a while back. So a lot of 2-4 teams, 3-13s, and then with Jeff Fisher, 7-9, almost every year. So ratings down. A lot of people hate watched last year. There was a new expression, hate watching, and I didn't know my wife was like a hate watcher. I'll tell you, opening day, I'm watching right here in my office here. I live in South St. Louis County, and I'm watching the Monday night game against San Francisco. I'm taking notes, going to write a blog like right after the game. And in our TV room, I hear my wife laughing and laughing and laughing. So finally there's a TV timeout. on the football game. Remember, that was 28-0 San Francisco.
I remember.
The Rams may not have even hit 200 yards offense. Remember, Aaron Donald got so frustrated he got thrown out of the game.
Yep.
Anyway, finally a TV timeout. I go in there and I'm like, honey, what's so funny? I thought maybe she was watching a funny movie or Seinfeld or something. And she just said, the Rams, they're terrible. I love it. So I had no idea that but hate watching now. Next year, I think a lot of people got that hate watching out of their system, and 4-12 was a bunch of fun. It'll be interesting to see what the I'm sure the ratings will go down even further this year. There are a few fans that are still interested in the team. There are lots of players left, Aaron Donald, Todd Gurley, and so forth, that were still with the team in St. Louis. But I just wonder, as time goes on, I would think it would continue to go down. But there, just for example, there's a Dairy Queen in St. Louis that if the Rams lose, they gave out the next day $1 cones. So that was their special enterprise. They sold like 700 after that San Francisco game, which he said was like 2.5 times what he did. So there was stuff like that going on all around town, like the local pizza delivery guy would, if they lost, you'd get half price or something. So yeah, I liken it to you're married for 21 years, and for a while it was a passionate marriage. My gosh, greatest show on turf, Super Bowls. Yep. Then you have a messy divorce. Zenny, you don't get over that in a few months. You don't get over that in a year. Now, go to Oakland with the even longer history, the more storied history of the Raiders in Oakland. And I know the whole Raiders Nation thing, and Mark Davis is counting on fans to still be Raiders fan. I don't know. I think that it could be a little ugly, some of those home games there. I know it probably helps.
Well, it doesn't help.
Good, but
right.
My gosh, some of those fans are going to be angry, aren't they?
Hey, so which gets to my question. They are already angry, and in fact, Derek Carr made a statement. I was told today, I haven't seen it, but reportedly he said that a real Raider fan follows the team anywhere, which is converse to what he had said a few months ago, expressing remorse over the idea. And
I saw that quote on Twitter, and that's basically what he said.
Yeah, and that was unfortunate, because Mark has really splintered the fan base, and he told a friend of mine a year ago at training camp he was, quote, good with that, unquote, when he was asked about it. And he's going into an area in Las Vegas where, first of all, that deal has so many problems, and my viewers, I'm not going to spend the time encroaching upon the subject. I'll simply say it's a bad deal. But it leads to my question, in that, basically, did you think this Raiders decision was going to happen the way that it did? Did it shock you? What was your thought?
When Adelson dropped out, I thought it was done, only because you just don't look in the sofa for like loose change for $650 million. So I thought it was done then. Now, I'm far from a financial expert. Are they just getting a loan for that money, Zenny? Am I right on that?
Yeah, you're right.
Cover this 50?
Well, the loan, it's actually, if you assume interest at LIBOR, which is 414 basis points currently, or at least the ones last time I checked, which was a few weeks ago, it changes. That comes out to approximately $734 million. And not only that, you have to consider the debt coverage ratio. So if it's at 1.5, they got to cough up 1.1 billion. Not that they have to cough it up, but they have to show a revenue stream that's at 1.1 billion. You know.
Yeah. I was very surprised, and it's amazing to me how quickly it's been. Within 5 years, the league's overall attitude towards Las Vegas and legalized gambling. You were there at the owners' meetings this March at the Arizona Biltmore, where Roger Goodell went on and on about, well, you can go to casino in any NFL town, but Zenny, you can't go to casino in any NFL town and lay down a legal bet on a football game. Sure, you can play roulette anywhere, you can play blackjack. I get that. There's a casino maybe 15 minutes from my house here, but you cannot legally bet on NFL games. And I just think maybe it's 20 years down the road. It's just a matter of time before there's some kind of gambling scandal on the game. Yep. And it's amazing now the NFL's there. Obviously, the amount of money bet on the amount of money bet on hockey is minuscule compared to the NFL. But and I know it's hard to walk away from $750 million. I know how the league operates, but still, how can you legalize sports betting not be a problem? And then you see the what was it? Just a week or two ago, they had the arm wrestling tournament with the professional players in May, and that was a huge problem for the league. And those guys might get fined. It's pretty hypocritical.
Not only that, get this. In 2015, I found 2 cases, and one of them was the Romo case, that fan something or other. And there was another one where there was a charity that was going to be ostensibly NFL sanctioned, but it was right next to a casino. And the league went and said, you can't do this. And I thought, wait a minute. How can they then turn around, give the Raiders the right to go to Las Vegas, which is basically a casino town in a state that's casino run, after that lawsuit? If I were the attorney in that lawsuit, I would ask for a retrial. That's ridiculous.
No, it's amazing how quickly the mindset changed, and it's just these were all money grabs by the league, and we know the league is greedy, but this is like last week I did believe it or not, an Sydney Australian radio interview about this. They were fascinated by this whole concept, not just St. Louis, of these teams moving, and they said they could not imagine. I guess their closest equivalent maybe to football is Australian rules football, and they said they could not imagine a team moving from Adelaide to Perth or whatever. It just doesn't happen. It's a uniquely American thing. I could not think of someone in the Bundesliga soccer in Germany or English Premier League, like teams moving town. They were just astounded by the fact that it happens. And, it happens more in the NFL than any other sport. This is a sport where you basically have a license to print money, and everybody makes money, even the poorest teams.
Yep.
Stan Kroenke, and that's another thing that upset the people of St. Louis in his relocation application. I mean, he trashed St. Louis on the way out of town.
I saw that.
A dying city, a dying market.
Yeah.
Can't support three sports teams. I mean, he made a lot of money. That, like I said, I mentioned it at the top of your show here, that Bud Adams, the St. Louis Leafs, he had one of the most profitable franchises in the league. They were 1, 2, or 3 for most of the early years that they were in St. Louis. Even as the 40% owner, he made a lot of money off having the Rams in St. Louis. And again, not so much at the end, but when you haven't had a winning season in 13 years, Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams. He was in high school.
That's right.
He was in high school. And the last time the Rams had a winning record.
Hey, question. What do you think of how Eric Grubman handled all this?
I don't know if he's the smartest man in the world or the slickest man in the world. I mean, I don't know what went on behind the scenes. When I dealt with him, and I wasn't the day-by-day point man, I was kind of in and out of the story. We had David Hahn. I referenced him earlier. He was a city side reporter. He covered the day-to-day stuff. Someone still had to cover what was happening on the field, but I was in and out of the story. But Grubman was always pretty straight with me, I would say. I don't think I ever caught him in a lie or whatever. And he's doing the league's bidding. I mean, those focus groups that they had, and then the town hall meetings, just the league putting him up to that. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'll tell you a story. This goes back to 1998, and when I was economic advisor to Elihu Harris when he was Oakland mayor. And to make a long story short, I was responsible for working with Goldman Sachs on a proposed swap option they had for Oakland. And Elihu wanted when I say working with, it was really more evaluating the proposal on behalf of the mayor to see if it was something we should do. So I built the system dynamics model of it to explain how it works with LIBOR and everything, and to determine if we were really going to get any money out of this, swap. And I determined that we were just as much likely not to and paying money as the reverse. And so on top of that, at that time, Goldman was very resistant to any minority representation. What I mean by that is basically underwriters or bond issuers or salespeople. And what you want ideally is you want one organization selling the bonds. You don't want to have underwriters, okay? But some cities like Oakland have minority underwriting or minority team regulations, and Oakland pushed them. It was my job to make sure those were pushed. Anyway, uh, between that and the iffiness of the swap, we voted. Elihu elected to vote no, but we had a council manager form of government then, and he was overruled by the council. So fast forward to 2012, and Goldman comes to City of Oakland calling, asking for something like 15 million. We weren't making money. We were actually losing money on it, and we wanted to get out of it. And so Goldman says, "Okay, you want to get out of it? Pay us 15 million." The city basically did this like that. Seriously, and said go somewhere. I was interviewed by Bloomberg that year. If you go type Xenophon Abraham Goldman, you'll find it, or Zinni Abraham Goldman, you'll find that. And I told them that it was basically what they were doing. What they were doing, Jim, was they were dangling money at our face like we were needing a payday loan. Okay, and it didn't work. So here, after going through that horror show, with Goldman, and Greg Carey of Goldman is working on the Las Vegas deal opposite us. By this time, we banned Goldman from doing business in Oakland. Eric worked for Goldman, but not only did that, I asked Eric about it on email, and rather than giving me a statement like he gave to Bloomberg when it came up about his being the point person for stadium financing and so on, he gave me a very I'm saying this in full view of the idea that he'll see this because we talked about it before. I don't hide from anything. He said, "Zinni, if you raise that issue again, I'm not going to talk to you." And I felt like I was being bullied. So I took umbrage to that and did some research. And I found out that not only did he work for Goldman, but Eric had owned 0.327% of Goldman Sachs. Okay?
Wow.
Yeah. And why is that significant? Because when it went public, he was one of the owners. Says who? Says the New York Times. I found the article. I talked about it. I put it out there. I even put it on Google News. Okay? I made sure it was seen. He didn't like that.
Yeah.
And so he wrote me an email back saying that he wasn't going to talk to me. And then I didn't want to lose. I like Eric personally from a style perspective. He's worked on a submarine for the Navy. He's got kids who serve our country. I have a lot of respect for Eric. I've said that before. I'll say that again. I have a great deal. I have loads of respect for Eric Grumman. And I don't want anybody to think otherwise. But this is a matter of the business of the city of Oakland. And I, as a lover of my city, feel responsible to take up that business when no one else will. I don't care if it's the mayor. I feel that's my job. So basically, and I apologize because I found myself getting angry about the whole thing all over again. But so anyway, Eric, I went back to Eric in a very diplomatic way, and I wrote to him and I said, "Hey, look, I'm sorry how this went. All I wanted was a statement." He wrote back that I was delusional and that my words were bullshit. So I thought, this is a side of the league I'm not used to. So let me try again, and I did. And then I finally saw him at the NFL annual meeting in person. And I went up to him in person and said, "Hey, I apologize for how things went." He was with two staffers, and he says, "Oh, and then this guy basically says that because I was with Goldman, I used my relationship against him." And one of them goes, "Well, that's not a way to make friends." And I didn't back down. I told them the story. I looked them straight in the eye. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm not going to back down from this. Given my unique position, I had a right to ask the question, and I didn't get the answer I expected." And we left it at that.
Yeah.
And I know Eric is still mad about it, but my whole point is, and look, this is full disclosure. I've said it once, I'll say it again. When I knew the NFL was considering relocation and was putting some team in Los Angeles as far back as 2012. I ran into Joe Brown, the executive vice president for government affairs. Same guy who basically let me cover the draft. I said, "Joe, I understand that you guys are looking to put a team in LA. That's a politically dicey situation. I'd like to do it for you." And I said that because I work for the governor and everything else. Also, to be frank with you, I would be in a position to save the Raiders. But the whole point is, among other teams, but, it would have been a tough job. But I felt that where I would have have been better, and I still feel, is in how Eric addressed some people. And like he got into a verbal confrontation with a council member in Carmel, not Carmel, but Carson, I believe it was. And there are other examples, okay? And I don't think as the representative of the league, you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And that's so again, I like Eric a lot, but it's a question which Eric you're gonna get on what day. But the bottom line is
I've heard that. I've heard that.
But the bottom line is, that he could have handled it a lot better. And the whole point is to make sure you do this in a way where you're walking a tightrope and you don't fall, because the fall is causing what we're talking about now, which is this lawsuit. His name was mentioned 4 times in that lawsuit. And you're the one that we're talking about. So that's, again, Eric's going to see this and probably, go Fred Flintstone and blow smoke and all that. But, the bottom line is my background is such that I can do spreadsheets on these things in a snap. I'm not intimidated by the financing part of it at all. And a lot of the way they treat us...
I am, so...
Yeah.
That's what...
When I get that, but see, Jim, a lot of the way they treat us is then the assumption that, we know and you don't. And then they encounter a guy like me who not only does know, but isn't afraid to ask a question or do his own spreadsheets, and then knows who to turn to, and it's like, oh shit, here comes Zinni. That's what I get at. I mean, I think the NFL could have handled this a lot better than they have.
Well, yeah, and it was difficult, and I know Eric was in a tough spot, but it's like, okay, is he working for the cities trying to keep their teams?
Yeah.
Is he working for the teams trying to move? It was just a weird spot to have him in. It will be interesting. Who knows how this will go? If this goes to a trial where there's discovery, does the league want that? Does the NFL want that? Beyond that, even beyond discovery, do they want to see Kevin Demoff on the stand to talk about how he said this, but something the opposite happened? Do they want Stan Kroenke on the stand? Do they want Eric Grubin on the stand?
Yeah, they don't want Demoff. I'll tell you why. Because, and I've never really talked with Kevin at length. He seems like a decent guy. But this is something that you can only change through hiring a reputation management person. If you go to YouTube right now on your laptop, you will find, if you type Kevin Demoff's name, I think the 4th result is Kevin Demoff, professional liar. I am not making that up. Someone wrote enough content to basically wreck his reputation. Yeah. And I thought, wow.
52, Zenny, as you saw the suit, only 52 pages, and 3 of them, almost 3 full pages, are misrepresentations by Kevin Demoff.
Yeah. Do you think that the framers or the designers of the lawsuit should have gone an antitrust route? Why do they think they chose the contract strategy?
I'm not really sure. I'd like to talk with them about that, but they're not in a position to talk. It is interesting that they didn't go by antitrust. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the other suits and they have been on antitrust basis, haven't they? And they haven't worked out, so maybe they decided we're going to attack it from a different angle.
Well, I'll tell you, in our case with Oakland, the 83 Supreme Court case works in our favor for an eminent domain. The Supreme Court of California remanded the case to the appellate court, saying that we had the right to take the Raiders by eminent domain. We just had to show why the Raiders were important. So at that time, and one of the people on the team was the late Alameda County Council Richard Winning, was a mentor of mine and a good friend. Sorry, I tear up when I think of Richard because he was a great Oaklander, just a great Oaklander. He would not have let this go down today. But the proof that came up at that time was that Oakland was of recreational value. But now it's entirely different, Jim, because the league has fooled around and let stadium construction become so expensive that you need a stadium like Kroenke's at the center of a mixed-use development, or ours or yours or anybody else's, right? And so so now the argument that the city of Oakland can make is, hey, look, not only were they going to be an anchor tenant in our mixed-use development, but they've already left $165 million on the table they've induced to spend. Now, the counter is, well, there's nothing in the lawsuit that ties the Raiders to an expenditure. There is. If we were to file a lawsuit, there is. because all the bond issues, the first bond issue and then the refinancing and the Raider deal, Oakland, they all state that the bond issue was done to refurbish the stadium to bring the Raiders back to Oakland. Had the Raiders not had said, "Oh, we don't want you to spend all this public money because it might go south," then it wouldn't have happened, right? But the Raiders went along with it. So, how can the Raiders... I'm dying to see someone test that in court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if Oakland and San Diego follow suit. And your point about the stadiums, it's amazing how these things have become palaces now.
Yeah.
And when does it end? At 10, 15 years down the line, if you're Buffalo or Jacksonville or Nashville, are you going to be expected to build a $2 billion stadium?
Yeah, or look what's going on with the 49ers and that whole fiasco down there. They're becoming too expensive, and it's at a time when taxpayers are, with offshoring and with mechanization of work, people are getting stuck. And, there's only so much people are going to take. It just, at some point, they're going to look for somebody to blame and they'll take it out in some kind of way. I mean, it's already happening in ways, not to get off the ranch, but, with this drug overdose problem we have in society and everything else, that's a reaction to overwork and frustration and splintered families. And the NFL is tone deaf to that, doing all this to me. And that's what makes me cry.
If the teams are good, the fans will find a way to get the game. But
yeah.
Hello, half the teams are going to lose on any Sunday.
Right.
And if you have a bad team, and Oakland had been bad until this year, St. Louis, like I said, 13 years without a winning season. Shouldn't the owners be held a little bit accountable? Well, you got to put a better product on the field. I mean, the St. Louis fans were very loyal. Now, at the end, the last couple of years, when they kind of figured what was up, they started to stay away. They lost 10,000 season ticket holders.
Wow.
Before the last season, before the 2015 season. That was after it became public knowledge that the stadium plan, that Kroenke had the Inglewood Stadium plan. Well, why would, if he's got a stadium all planned out there and he plans to file for relocation, why would you go to a game in St. Louis? Wow. I don't blame them for staying away.
And hey, Golden State Raider, that answers your question. Hey, could you not avoid the links for now, because I want people to pay attention to this broadcast. That link takes people's attention away from this broadcast. Not entirely, but okay. So my point is that anyway, but as far as some people were commenting about, people not showing up to the Rams games, but Jim, I think you answered it right there. You answered the...
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Until, I think it was through 2009 or 2010, and they were in a stretch of the worst 5-year stretch of wins and losses in NFL history between 2007, 2011. 15-65. Their average record for 5 years, 3-13. Worst 5-year stretch in NFL history. Through the 2009 season, before the blackout rules were basically made no more, in like their first 15, 16 seasons in St. Louis, they only had 9 blackouts. They showed up for some bad football. Wow. There were, like I said, 2-14s, 1-15s, where that stadium was full or close to being full.
Hey, do you see the... I have 2 questions. First of all, because you cover the Rams and still cover the Rams and covering the draft as well, do you see St. Louis getting an expansion team, A? And then B, what the hell happened with Jeff Fisher, man?
Well, first off, as I think you know, the league currently has no appetite to expand. They don't want to slice the TV pie into a couple more shares. And I think if they do expand, they're thinking internationally. Now, we can debate long and hard. I still don't see logistically how a team in London will work. You can't have, I'll give you a quick example. It's one of the last seasons of the Rams in St. Louis. Their place kicker, it was like Thursday in practice. He tears his hamstring in practice. They call down, there's a kicker that kicked for Arkansas. They call down, he's at some small town in Arkansas. Hey, we need you up here Friday because we have a game on Sunday, and he got in his pickup truck and drove up to St. Louis. I think it's physically impossible to get in your pickup truck and drive to London, England. if the same situation happened. Anyway, I cannot see a team working there. But anyway, I think if there is expansion, maybe it's Mexico City, maybe it's London, and you know the whole dynamics. Roger Goodell he seems committed to making this. What is this stated? What's it? 15 billion or 25 billion in annual revenue. He's committed to doing that, growing the game. Going back, again, as you know, Zenny, I'm not telling you anything, to Tagliabue, the league is obsessed with becoming more of an international game.
It
so
is.
I don't see expansion as a possibility. Just in a larger sense, the city is so turned off by what happened with this whole stadium thing that at least the current generation of leaders, they have no stomach to pursue another team, especially the way the stadium financing is coming. Now, who knows, maybe 20 years down the line, maybe a new generation of leaders will think differently. But I would say that in my lifetime, I don't expect an NFL team to be in St. Louis. Now, for part two, what happened to Jeff Fisher?
Yeah.
I thought it was a very good hire. I can remember back when the Rams were in the midst of that actually 15-65 free fall. John Shaw, then the president of the Rams, saying it. He's always liked Fisher. He would have loved to have hired him at some point. But during most of that period, Fisher was very well ensconced in Nashville. So he comes in. The Rams were just god-awful when he came in. They were coming off a 2-14 season with Steve Spagnuolo. First team meeting, Jeff Fisher is in front of the team, at least the returning players. This is before the draft. And he says to himself, these guys don't even look as good as Auburn's football team. He had a son that played for Auburn at the time. So just off the hoof, Physically, they didn't. He thought that Auburn's team looked physically more imposing than the Rams. So he did a great job of getting the Rams terrible to respectability right away. They go 7-8-1 in their first year, flirt with the playoffs. Went 7-9 the next year, but they never could get over that hump. He got them back kind of to respectability, and they just stayed there. They had issues at quarterback. Sam Bradford didn't work out as the number one guy. They had injury problems, but they just never really seemed to develop an offense. He got a lot of criticism in St. Louis for, okay, your defenses are pretty good, but you're stuck in the Stone Age in terms of your offensive philosophy. Now, I will counter that with saying Seattle at its height with Marshawn Lynch, they were a smash mouth, run the football type team. San Francisco back in with Kaepernick and Frank Gore, that's how they played. Tennessee is kind of like that now. You can win with that style, but it just didn't work.
I got to ask you with Tennessee, do you give Mariota a chance to survive a full season? He gets beat up a lot. He's becoming a China doll.
Well, he did have that, what was it, a fibula, broken fibula? And I think he'd been okay before then, but boy, these running quarterbacks, have we seen a running quarterback that's been able to last? This is the NFL. It works in college, but sooner or later, you can only take so many hits. Even Cam Newton, my gosh, as big and an imposing a figure as him, he didn't seem quite the same after that. He took that ferocious hit. Remember on the goal line where
I remember.
He thought the play was over, and he slowed up. He didn't look the same.
And that's why Mike Shula has never been one of my favorite offensive coordinators, because I felt that in Cam Newton you have a person who, in his first year with Rod Chudinski, was developing into, I think, could have been one of the best passers in NFL history. And then they switched to Shula, and he getting his head knocked around. I thought, seriously?
Well, look at the Redskins with RG3 that first year. They ran him, and boom.
Yeah, ran him into the ground.
He didn't make the playoffs, but it just doesn't work. And so with those guys like Mariota, okay, you've got to run occasionally, but I think it's shown that you can't really make it a regular part of your offense to have these read options. It's happened to everyone. It happened to Kaepernick.
Hey, do you have a favorite going into this season?
A favorite team?
Yeah, that you think is going to go all the way.
Well, I hate to say it because New England is still detested here, over the whole taped walkthrough and the Spygate allegations. But my goodness, and what a great offseason they had in terms of adding talent. they have a team that just won its 5th Super Bowl, enters free agency with like loads of salary cap room. How is that possible? And even in St. Louis, I think there's some grudging respect for what Bill Belichick has done. Obviously, it helps to have a franchise quarterback in Tom Brady. But in St. Louis, even everything that he's accomplished, Belichick and the Patriots, there's always going to be an asterisk by it because of the spike. At least when they got started, I would say them over on the NFC side. Boy, that's hard to say. That looks wide open. Can Dak Prescott do it again in Dallas? I think Green Bay will have more. They'll have more offense, more oomph with some of their offseason acquisitions, but I don't know about their defense. It looks pretty wide open in the NFC.
Hey, what do you think about the Rams' chances, since you still pay attention to them and your wife laughs at them? This year.
Yeah, I think she will still be a hate watcher next year. I can't see it, Zenny. I just can't see it. I don't see the playmakers on offense. They got rid of Lance Kendricks, a pretty good tight end. Kenny Britt is the first Rams wide receiver to get 1,000 yards since Torrey Holt. We're talking
it's
like
a long time.
2007, almost a decade ago. They let him go to Cleveland, and then you have the whole Jared Goff thing. I don't see the magic in the guy. It's hard to judge just because of what was around him, but we'll see.
Yeah.
If Sean McVay can make this work, he's definitely a quarterback whisperer.
Well, I'm root for Jared because I'm a golden bear.
There you go.
But having said that, I think that absent Tony Franklin and the Sonny Dykes design, Jared's in for a hard one. Hey, it's 11:01. I'm being mindful of your time. You want to stick around? Or you got to go.
Yeah, I better scoot. I got some stories to write. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to do this again. This is a load of fun. We can talk about the Rams, and you can jot down for me your wife's latest jokes about them.
There you go. That'll work.
So I'm going to stick around on the broadcast, folks, but I'll shut down the Skype. But hey, Jim, thanks so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zenny. Glad we could do this.
Okay, you got it. I'll see you. Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you. Folks, that was Jim Thomas of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and now I'm here to talk about the aftermath of that fun exchange. I had a lot of fun doing that, and that was a blast. I don't know. I know you guys are focused on the Raiders, and I understand that, but I thought this would be fun to do because the St. Louis lawsuit is in a lot of ways a template for the Oakland lawsuit, but also it was just a treat to have somebody who is a 21-year NFL Pro Football Writers member veteran to talk about the situation, and who can speak about the lawsuit with an intellect. I'll get to your questions now and comments. Let's see here. Let's talk about keeping the Raiders in Oakland, says Raider Flea. Steve Collins says, good stuff. Zenny, thank you very much. Appreciate it. That was quite enjoyable. Still a little fog there on the lens. Hold on a second. I have to clean that out. I don't know where that came from. Excuse me. One moment, please. And there. All right. So, I think someone said, Zenny, you are here. Mark, you're late to the program. And you said you're finally here for the live show. Thanks, sir. Mark, you missed Jim Thomas of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. You missed the best part of the show. You're always late. But the good news is you can roll this back, Always a thank you, says Melvin says, always a good job, Zenny. Appreciate you. And Melvin, I appreciate you for saying that. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you even if you criticize me. That's fine. And let's see here. Mark says, Zenny, you have to message me back to go live. You're right. I have to figure out a better way to do that. If you all could send me your emails to Zenny at Zenny62.com, I'll put my email down there. Then I can give you an appropriate heads up rather than just on Twitter. Okay? And also sometimes, and I have to be candid, is that it's difficult to, Well, sometimes I'll say, hey, that's my email. Like with Jim, for example, we originally were supposed to go on last week, and I didn't hear from him, and I thought maybe he didn't want to do it, and then he chimed in back and said he did, and we firmed it up. And then with my buddy Rick Suratella, he was having a lot of perturbations in his schedule, so I thought I had him one night and I didn't, and so I hate to put out a notification say, hey, so and so is going to be our guest, and then it falls through. That said, I want to tell you I've got to work on Jim Quinn, and I'm excited to have Stephanie Martin. And Stephanie Martin is a name that you do not know, but she was one of the people who headed the production of Super Bowl 50 San Francisco. And she's got a new book out on what they learned. And she is my guest Thursday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, which is 7 back out west, okay? I'm really excited to have Stephanie on. She's been a longtime friend. She's one of the giants in sports as a female executive. And she's a PR maven who's very well known, particularly in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I'm really blessed to have my longtime friend on Livestream talking about her new book about Super Bowl 50. And I hope everybody tunes in and moderators come and help protect us. So, yeah. So let's see. Dustin Scott says, turn on notifications for Zinni channel. I always get a pop-up when Zinni makes a post or goes live. That's a good one. Thanks. And then let's see here. Please note the above 2 questions I posted and respond when you can. Jay says JT Day. Sorry, JT. Let me go back and I see if I got the questions here. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Mark says, I was busy with Easter celebrations and then watching the San Jose Sharks game. Hey, what's the score, by the way? And so note the flags. All right, thank you, Jay. Let me go back and see that. I'm having a hard time scrolling up for some reason. That's very odd. And I think it's maybe... Oh, here, now I'm scrolling up. Now we're scrolling. Ellis Conway, how you doing? Joshua Gonzalez, how are you? Joshua says St. Louis better. Bit is bitter. He is correct. JT, I do not see your questions. Maybe I went by them. Go Cubs, how you doing? Go Cubs says the Patriots are the team to beat. Miguel Rose says Jack Del Rio is a terrible head coach. I disagree. Aeroplane Blues says Donald Trump needs to help the Raiders. I like that. Let's see here. Now, let me go down. Sorry, JT, I'm looking for your questions. Are you JT as in JT the Brick? I'm wondering. I do not see them. Oh, Golden State Raiders. Zinni, remember the comment I left you about Draymond Green on the blog of the Facebook killing? That went over my head. Let's see here. Dustin Scott got that one. JT Day, I still don't see your questions up here. So I'm going to ask you to repost them because I can't find them. JT Day says, no, not the Brick, ever. Joshua Gonzalez asks, do you think Sean McVay will make a good coach? I think the problem with young coaches in general in the NFL, I'm going to be blunt. The problem with a young coach, if they're white and you're dealing with mostly a black audience, is unless they understand how to relate to a black player in terms, and I'll explain what that means in a second, they're going to fail. For example, okay, there is sometimes a tendency for someone, regardless of color, if they're young, to be too authoritarian. And if you hit the modern young black player that way as a white coach, it's not, they're going to be put off and they're not going to respond to you. And there are a number of examples of this. I think of Josh McDaniels with the Broncos with Brandon Marshall, for example, all right? That's one of a number of examples that come to mind. If Sean comes off that way, he's not in for a good tenure. However, if he takes the approach of somebody like an Adam Gase who isn't like that, I think he'll do well. If he just simply coaches, if he acts like a teacher rather than authoritarian, and he acts like a person who has the ear, he listens to the player. It's not just, in order to have the ear of the players, you have to listen to the players. And so if you're not listening to the players are not going to do what you want because they don't feel like you're with them. So that has to be done. Now, for example, Todd Bozeman was an excellent coach at Cal for basketball. Okay, I know the media didn't like him, but Todd had a chip on his shoulder that came from, hey, you don't respect me because I'm black and I'm a head coach and I'm young. But he was dialed into his players because he was black, young, and a head coach. And they understood what he was going through. So, look, color matters. It really does. And it's not a matter of putting anything down. It's just a matter of being honest. It just does. So as a white head coach who's young, the one thing that McVay has to guard against, and I haven't heard anyone attach this to him, his charge, is being too authoritarian. If he's too authoritarian, he'll fail. And whether or not he is, that remains to be seen. Now, okay? Now, you say, how about Gruden? Gruden is a great example. Gruden was a yeller. He had a voice that worked for Tampa for one season, got them to the Super Bowl, and then it went downhill from there because he was a shock to the system, right? I mean, they already had Dungy. They were already the players were already comfortable with a player who had their ear and was one of them. But Tony at that time wasn't quite as good in terms of understanding how to deal with his weakness on offense. He did at the Colts. Okay, he shored that up. And he was able to let go and let somebody else handle that. And that spoke to Tony Dungy's growth as a person. Okay? But Gruden had one voice, and that wore thin after a while. You can't be that authoritarian. It works as a counter. But if you don't have the right schemes and the understanding, that yelling at people and, hey, you got to do this, and hey, it only works sometime. But having said that, John Gruden is a nice guy. All right, he might, even when he's yelling, he kind of plays. I'll give you an example, all right? Because I know John. And, I'm better acquainted with him. I was better acquainted with him in the past than now. It's been a while. But I remember when I first met him, I was introduced to him by my buddy, and I got to call him, Charlie Santana Jr. And Charlie Santana Jr.'s dad, Charlie Santana Sr., was one of the people who, as Alameda County supervisor, was instrumental in trying to bring the Raiders successfully back to Oakland from Los Angeles. Anyway, Charlie introduced me at a Raiders party, Raiders luxury suite party, to John Gruden and to this guy who was the cut doctor for Mike Tyson. And so we have a picture of us somewhere around with with the 3 or 4 of us standing there. Anyway, I had an idea for a play, and John said, hey, look, call the Raider office, get on my schedule, come down, and we'll do a whiteboard talk. And I never took him up on it. Stupid me. I should have. I then saw John, I ran into him, at the Lee Steinberg Houston 2004 Super Bowl party, and I reminded him of that part of life where he had said, hey, look, come down to the office. And I said, I still have that play idea. So he said, well, get the damn napkin and put it down. So I did, and we had a great time talking, and he actually used that play. So, I think John Gruden would tell you now that his approach has to change with the players of the day and has to adjust if he were of a mind to come back into coaching. He's making so much money now without the headaches or anything else, the stress. Why would you want to bother? But at any rate, okay. JT Day. Oh, excuse me. Dustin Zinni. Do you ever have any commentary on the Cleveland Facebook execution? No comment. I don't want to talk about that here. At all. Let's see here. let's see, JT Day 1. Does the St. Louis suit fall under antitrust triple damages? 2. Is each of the 33 defendants, 32 teams in the NFL itself equals 33, each responsible for a damage award individually if the case wins? I think knowing what little law I do, that's up to the judge as to how that's divvied out and who's responsible. And the NFL, I don't know how that would be done. And I could issue a hypothesis. I'll find out. It's a good question. I'm going to work on getting more guests on to talk about this lawsuit. Let's see here. And is each responsible for? Okay, did your YouTube channel grow rapidly, Zenny? It's grown. I need more subscribers. The live stream really helps. Okay, tremendously. The individual videos, I've got to do more videos about pop culture. There is a problem on YouTube regarding monetization, and there's a rush to demonetize news and politics videos, and that's the reason why I stay away from controversial discussions like the Facebook issue. Notice I use the term issue for a reason, okay? Because videos have been demonetized. In fact, there have been whole channels like David Pakman, Alex Jones, who've been completely demonetized. A whole rash of videos that had in their title something that was deemed controversial. Didn't matter if it was something like, whatever the word. When news and politics, you have these controversial discussions. YouTube has went on a tear. Fortunately, because I do the NFL and pop culture and basketball, and I'm doing basically the trend news of the day, I don't have that problem as much. But I really would like to get to the 100,000 level I'm at in terms of subscribers. I'm right now at over 35,000, and we're growing, but I need more subscribers. The more subscribers, money. The good news is that the video also becomes a blog post, and it's part of a larger network of blogs and social media platforms that I run, and so my income isn't by any means trapped just to YouTube. I have clients that depend on my production here, but I want to get funded. I want to raise 10 million, hire some of you here, and create a good media company out of this that can do some real good damage on a good way. That's my objective. Having people around the country making video blogs and live streams on Zenny62, that would be the coolest thing, Okay. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. So, phew, I need some water after that one. If you only had a friend to subscribe, you would grow. You know what, Golden State, thank you. I think just word of mouth, and also, word of mouth helps a lot. Barry Lee buying the T-shirt, money. That money. His having his T-shirt in a photograph on Twitter is tremendous. That speaks volumes, and I owe Barry Lee for that. And don't think that I don't recognize that at all. John Marks, yourself, others, Miguel Rose, JT, Dustin, Octavio, who I need to connect with on Skype. Octavio, I have not forgot at all. And Mark asks, Zenny, what is the schedule next week in NFL Draft? I'm approved. Zenny62 is approved to cover the NFL Draft for the 12th straight year in a row. We're seeking sponsors, by the way. And if you go to Zenny62.com and look on any of the news there, and you press on any page, there's a link that'll take you to our sponsor page, okay? So, seeking sponsors for the live stream. So my plan is really to go there for 2 days. Ideally the 26th and the 27th. The night of the 26th, the night of the 27th, and leave on the 28th. Because the NFL is changing things so that it's not friendly for the media. That's a bad term. It's not the best environment for the media to stay on the third day. Okay? They try to funnel everything toward just NFL Network, ESPN, and so they don't have a place for you to sit as media on the third day or anything. So I'm here helping my mom out, and my mom's elderly, and I'm the only child, and I haven't been to Oakland in a while, but this is where I need to be, and so I'm if I don't go, it'll be for some issues related to her, or maybe, but I do plan to just fly in and do the live stream, and don't worry, every step of the way I'll let you know. I love this form of media because, among other things, it's honest. You're not getting something that's canned. I'm talking to you. I might mention things that somebody else might not talk about, but I feel like this. Everybody in life has the same walk. Why hide from it? It's ridiculous. Okay. How about you set up a PayPal where you help you with expenses? The Golden State I'm on, PayPal. Thank you. This is my PayPal number. I'll tell you that. And if you do that and you have a business you want to promote it, I will definitely do that. If you give me, I will even make the banner for you, and the whole online presentation. I'll even mention the company on all of our NFL draft related content, videos, live streams, whole 9 yards. Zinni at sportsbusinesssims.com. That's the PayPal address. I already have an active PayPal account. Dustin Scott, Zinni, my girlfriend is like, why are you always here watching this guy? Does your girlfriend not think I'm cute? What's up with your girlfriend? She doesn't like black guys who's bald? What's the deal? Tell her she can watch. I mean, ask your girlfriend what she wants me to talk about. Ellis Conway says, me too. Let's see here. Joshua Gonzalez, your opinion on Anthony Lynn as a coach. I think Lynn has a tough job because he is in a new environment and he has to win now. I mean, they all have to win now, of course, but he especially, because you're up against the Rams in Los Angeles. So this preseason game is a must-win for him. Even if, let's say, he loses, he might spin it as, well, it's preseason, it's just another game, we're preparing for the regular season, yada, yada, yada. Folks, I'm going to tell you that's BS. The game against the Rams, the Chargers want to win because they have to set a mark that they are the kings of LA. And because everybody is saying to them, hey, you don't belong here. You belong in San Diego. Why are you here? Right? I mean, they like the orphans. So they have to make their mark, and that falls on Lynn more than anything. So, Joseph Jones says, Zinni, can you give your thoughts on the Derek Carr comments? Oh, yeah. Okay. I believe that he is writing in the sense that he hasn't been a Raider player long enough to comment on who's a true fan and who is not, okay? And all right, I get that, but here's my take, and I'm gonna, if you would tweet and tag Derek Carr, hopefully he's just watching now. I'm gonna tweet out something for Carr to make sure that and I'm going to say Derek Carr. I'm going to say FYI, hashtag FYI, Derek. There's a Derek Carr QB, I believe it is. Let me do a copy paste and make sure that I've got this right by way of Twitter, so I don't make a mistake here. There's Twitter, okay. And one moment, please. I just want to make sure that I've got this correct. Let's see here. There's Derek Carr. And no, I did not have it. I had the wrong one. Yeah, and there I'm following him, obviously. And now I've got the right Twitter account for Mr. Carr here. There. And here. And then I'll put there. And voila. I have now Twitter tagged Derek Carr. And here is my take. First of all, Derek Carr has to understand that the brand of the Raiders was forged in Oakland in 1960, many years ago before he was born. And the Raiders would not be who they are were it not for Oakland. And he, as a player, should respect the current place the Raiders are in, which is Oakland, and not make statements like, you're a Raider fan regardless of where we go. Because the Raiders are uniquely a part of Oakland, arguably more so than many other teams in the NFL. So our brand is a mixture of the vision of Ed McGaugh, Wayne Valley, Al Davis, Oaklanders, many Oaklanders, controversies like the Black Panthers, the idea that Oakland, a famous book, which Derek Carr you should get. It's called Oakland is Not for Burning. And it was put out in 1968. And Oakland is Not for Burning was written because the author and others expected there to be a Watt-style riot in Oakland during the 1960s civil rights era marches and riots. And so, as a way of heading this off, the federal government gave the Port of Oakland $10.2 million of memory serves to build the hangar at Oakland Airport, the giant one that you may have seen if you take Hagenberger Road into the airport. It's on the on the right. For a long time it was World Airways, and then for a time United Airlines. Now I don't know who has it. Anyway, that was to have jobs for black people. That was the idea. Well, there was never a riot. Oakland is Not for Burning, the book, asked the question why. And what Oakland has always been about is a racial harmony that some people attribute to its unique topographical design. That is, as a friend of mine put it, the people on the flatlands want to be rich and have the hills home, so they don't want to wreck that, opportunity. Now, of course, you have to explain in that context the riots we've had around Oscar Grant, which I can do. But the riots of Oscar Grant, in fact, that's a great point. The riots of Oscar Grant happened because there are a number of Oaklanders who are of color who believe that the police and many in the money, mostly white establishment have no regard for them. And the murder of Oscar Grant reflected that. And then, of course, there was Occupy Oakland, which was adjunctly related to that, but once again, the same thing. Hey, the establishment doesn't like us. It's always, Oakland's story has been one of the little people making themselves known against the establishment. That's our history. And that's a history Derek Carr needs to understand and doesn't. He just doesn't. So when he says, you have to be a Raider fan wherever they go, no. The Raiders have to understand their roots in Oakland. There's an old saying, you never forget where you came from. Okay? And Derek Carr, as long as he's with the Raider, has to understand where the Raiders came from. The Raiders came from Oakland. They didn't come from Outer Mongolia. They didn't come from Tokyo. They didn't come from Cucamonga. They didn't come from Milpitas. They came from Oakland. All right? And there's a beautiful and unique history, not just because the Raiders came from Oakland, but the time at which the Raiders were born in Oakland. That's powerful stuff, okay? And for Derek Carr to make the statement means he doesn't know that, the poor man. He needs to be appropriately educated. So someone take this part of my live stream, make a video, or no, don't even make a video because then you get in trouble with copyright. Okay, I'll make the video. Make a picture and say, you need to listen to what Zinni's trying to tell you. And then I'll make the video and I'll send it out that way. Because he has to understand, and other young Raider players have to understand what the Raiders are really about. And they're really about, in their brand, being created in Oakland at a time of amazing social upheaval. And the Raiders really represented the the plight of the common person. Not just the common man, the common person. Okay? And Al Davis reflected that in his hires and his actions. So you can't forget that. So when Derek Carr makes statements about that, he is 1,000% wrong. I know he wants people to be for the Raiders, but hey, there's a chance the Raiders may not leave at all, given what's going on in Vegas. So he's got to walk that back. All right? Sorry, I got so into what I was saying. Anyway. Okay, and Melvin Lovejoy says, the Mongolian Raiders. Yeah, the Mongolian Raiders. I mean, look, I think I missed your comments here. Octavia says, Raider has fans all over the world that support Oakland, but they're Raider fans first and foremost. In an exclusive body. Yeah, but Octavia, here's the point. I had people in Houston come up to me and say, yeah, we're Raider fans, but the Raiders belong in Oakland. Everyone said that. Even Arthur Blank said the Raiders belong in Oakland, which is why I'm surprised at his vote, but I kind of think I know what that was about. Everyone recognizes that who was a true Raider fan, that the Raiders' roots and their attitude and their brand are Oakland-based. Period. You can't just take that and put it someplace else and think it's going to be the same. It's not. It's not going to be the same in terms of how the crowd reacts. It's not going to be the same in terms of how the players play with respect to the crowd. No, not at all. Don't tell me it's going to be. It's not. Okay? And you're saying don't be a hater on Carr. Look, I'm not. It doesn't matter, but he's young. I'm not a hater on him. I'm telling him what time it is. I'm 50. I'll be 55 this year. Okay? He's old enough to be my kid. He doesn't know. So don't give me this, don't be a hater on Carr stuff, because I'm not hating on Carr. This is generational. He needs to understand historically what time it is. And he doesn't. Okay? He doesn't. He could choose to put nothing out there. Or he could say what he said before. Hey, look, Oakland fans, I'm with you. Stick with us. I ask you. I understand where you're coming from. That's all he had to say. Leave it at that. That's all he needed to do. Now, Dustin says Jerick is just toying the company line. Let's see here. Luciano says, just reminded him who was there when he was 0-10. Thank you. Raiders should draft Christian McCaffrey. I agree. Zinni has to say that. Golden State Raiders says Zinni has to say that since he's getting payday soon, I believe. Yeah, I understand, but still, you know what? If he said something in support of Oakland, the Raiders are not going to cut him. Let's be real. All right, that would be ridiculous. Where's John Marks when you need him? Hey Barry, I'll see you. Okay, thanks. Miguel Rose says the Raiders need to draft defense, and yeah, I agree. Crawford 371. It's not over. It's the way it's rolled out. It has a chance of falling through. Yes, it does. It does. Let's see here. Zinni. Let's see here. Go Cubs says agree or disagree and why. I think I answered that one. Steve Collins says Ellis right on. Ellis Conway said see you next time, Barry. I'll see you, Barry. See you, Barry. See you, Barry. Let's see. Who did I miss? Justin Scott. Let's say, what did he say? Oh, let's see here. No Oakland fans has history. Joseph Jones says, I agree with you, Zinni. His job is to play football, not comment on things that don't concern him. I've supported him from day one, but I've lost a little respect for him with all these comments. I haven't lost respect for him. I just think that someone needs to talk with him. And so I'm trying to do so as best I can through this medium. But, I don't have his cell phone number. But the bottom line is, no, he's completely wrong. He doesn't get Oakland. He doesn't get that time. And he needs to research civil rights and Oakland. He needs to read about Oakland. Oakland's not for burning. And there's a book by Beth Bagwell about Oakland. And just talk to people like myself and others about what Oakland is about. And then in that context, talk to Mark Davis about Oakland. Find out what he dislikes about Oakland. That'll be very telling, We need to have a come-to-Jesus discussion about the Raiders and Oakland we haven't had before. I mean an honest, 1,000% one that has to be led by Mark Davis, The mayor and elected officials should be involved. A nice town hall meeting, a real one, not like the one we had at the NFL where Boss Man was, great, but we really didn't get a full hearing. I thought it was good, but in light of what happened, it seemed like it wasn't enough. So, because it just seemed like it wasn't enough. Chris Jackson says, anyone else feel like Marshawn is a sellout for signing with the team now? No, I don't. Because the Raiders haven't gone anywhere. They've been approved to go somewhere, but lame duck. May not happen. Dustin Scott said the Raiders start off 0-10 people in Vegas will be putting their tickets on black in the roulette wheel. Hey, so are you guys going to bet? Let's say if the Raiders do go to Vegas, are you going to bet on the games? Just asking. Are you going to bet on the Raiders games in Vegas? I mean, you can bet on them now, in a sense, can't you? You can, in a sense. Over, under, that sort of thing. You're going to bet. Let's see here. Marcus, let's see. Golden State says he bets even now. Let's see here. I don't get it. Even if he spoke out against the move to Las Vegas, it wouldn't change a thing. Pete Small says, Pete, you're right. But on the other hand, why, Pete, look, why upset the fan base? Why antagonize an already divided fan base? Why do that? Okay. Go Cubs. I had a lot of fun last night. Thank you, everyone in chat, for keeping language clean tonight. I will see you all tomorrow next stream night. Good night, Go Cubs. See you. And Johnny says, Johnny Binkeba says, why did the 31 owners approve the move since Mark Davis doesn't have the exact land location in Las Vegas put in place? I think it was more a reaction to what Oakland didn't do and a desire to give Mark what he wants. I think it was a combination of those two. More to the point what the mayor didn't do and how she handled it. Libby put herself too much as the front and center rather than having a task force of people to take the bullets for her, like myself and others, and structure a better presentation and really give us a home run hitting chance. I mean, someone might say, well, Ronnie Lott was the face, and he wasn't at the end of the day because, look, Ronnie didn't show up at the town hall meeting that we had. Remember the press conference that we had, the rally that we had the day before the NFL annual meeting started? Ronnie Lott wasn't there giving a speech to lead people. Ronnie Lott didn't call any kind of post-mortem, to bring everybody together and thank them, which would have been the cool thing to do. He just went invisible, and my mom said it best. My mom said, well, what do you expect him to do? He's probably very hurt and disappointed, and I get that. My mom is the oracle of wisdom. Moms are like that. But you'd like to see Ronnie Lott come on and really thank Raider Nation for getting behind what he was trying to do. But now I digress. Even in his case, he wasn't the person that was responsible for the deal. He didn't know the details. He was the icon, right? And the mayor really didn't know all the details. She was the mayor. But the mayor put herself out there and gave a presentation that didn't go as well as it could have, rather than having somebody like the head of the Joint Powers Authority as the presentation, like Scott McKibben, myself, one other person, perhaps a guy like Andy Dolich or somebody, or Kofi Bonner of Lennar, or all four of us, right? And along with Drew McKnight of Fortress, okay? So I think that would have been a team. In fact, I know it would have been a better team. Ronnie Lott, Scott McKibben, Drew McKnight of Fortress, myself, and the mayor. And then we have McKibben lead the discussion because he's the person with the greatest experience, and us filling in the blanks where we can to answer questions. And then it would have been even better, having said that, to have Dave Cavall, the president of the A's, in that room. So we could have done a deal right there. And I'm not talking about at the NFL annual meeting. I'm talking about the Florida meeting, when Libby knew that the A's were an issue back then. That's how you do it. But instead, she put herself out there as the front person, and that's not the way you do being a mayor in that situation, because if you have no experience with this sort of thing. So anyway, let's see here. Is Joe Flacco an elite quarterback? How many times are we going to have that question come up? Yes. Johnny, you're welcome. Let's see here. Hey, Dustin, you never asked your girlfriend what her issue was with seeing my face. Okay. All right. Raiders, Chargers in LA makes more sense. Yeah. The Bears. And Jerry Octavio is right. Jerry Jones is responsible for the move. 831 Scott. Hey, how you doing? Zinni, if the Rams moving to LA increases their franchise value by $750 million, what do you think the move to Las Vegas will do for the Raiders? Just wondering. Well, it's not the location. It's the stadium, all right? And the bottom line is it will increase their franchise value. But the question, 831 Scott, is this. Would the Raiders be worth more in a new stadium in Oakland? The answer is yes. Absolutely. You consider the media market, when you consider average income, when you consider potential sponsorship opportunities, infinitesimally. Yes, 1,000 times yes. You can't take the situation here in Oakland and with an old stadium and then say, oh, it's going to be better in Las Vegas. Why? Well, it's not because it's Vegas. No. It's a new stadium. So you then have to say, to equalize it, build a new stadium in Oakland. In the proposal I developed for Mark Davis and the Raiders in 2015, I was able to squeeze out, get this, $2 billion for the Raiders exclusively. When I saw Mark Davis at the Schaumburg NFL owners meeting that 2016 in August, I said, Mr. Davis, I got $2 billion for you. That's a good way to start a conversation with the Raiders. Of course, he didn't follow up on it. He took $2 billion out of his pocket. He's not going to see that in Las Vegas, I'm telling you. Sorry. See here. No, Octavio says, right, Vegas is not sustainable. Octavio says, imagine if the Raiders went to LA with Disney involved. You know, with Bob Iger, I thought, and I still think that's an exciting opportunity. In fact, I think that's something that should be explored anyway. And I think Bob Iger would be open to that kind of unique, God, that would be cool in the Bay Area, don't you think? The Disney Oakland Raiders. At any rate, now, moving to Vegas would cause the Raiders to go bankrupt. Miguel, I agree with you. Henry Flores, the Las Vegas Journal is ripping the Raiders apart. Yeah, what? I didn't see the latest article today. What was it? Oh, Dustin Scott says she just doesn't understand what we're talking about. She doesn't understand the appeal of the conversation. Oh, I think, tell her it's a matter of, this is an avenue for people who want details about the business of sports and football. Although we do talk about, as we did with Randy Scott, not Randy Scott, but Blue Lives Matter last year, some other social issues, but this is primarily about the business of sport and pop culture. And as we go along, tell your girlfriend I'm gonna have more different types of celebrities on. I'd love to get people like, let me tell you what's in my wish list, like John Mayer or John Legend on to talk about life and also sports, right? Or Hope Solo on soccer. That's the wish list that I have, and I have to get cracking at it. That's why I'm trying to get my numbers up so I can have them on. Of course, it's chicken and egg. If you get that one big celebrity break, then everything takes off from there. So, it takes work. It takes work. So, but it's fun. What I love about this is talking to people like Jim Thomas, great guy. And we've been in the same room before but didn't know each other. But it takes issues like the one we're talking about to bring us all together. Not just he and I, but all of you. Now, let's see here. Dustin Scott says the owners voted 31-1. Sorry, Justin. This is all going by. Oh, by the way, folks, if you want me to see your question and not miss it, You can pay $2 on the super chat, and it sticks right up there. Ding, can't miss it. Federico did that, read it right on the air. That was pretty cool. Thank you, Federico. That was very cool, in fact. Now, I'm going to tweet this out. We're getting to that part where we're getting actually more viewers. This is really cool. Oh, Dustin, the owners voted 31-1 out of 40 years of pure exasperation for the Davises. They are so tired that they are willing to let Mark suffocate to death in Vegas. They want him out. You know, Dustin, I think that's a better comment. That's the comment of the night. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think you're absolutely right. And I'm going to copy that. Copy it and paste. I need to get a sponsor for the D. Dustin. Exclamation point there. And like that. There. Got it. Okay. And Golden State Raiders says he thinks Jerry Jones wants to buy the Raiders. Interesting. Dustin Scott gets an agreement with Johnny Burkle. And Unspoken Voices, excuse me. Joshua Gonzalez, do you think that play in the Super Bowl ruined the Seahawks trusting their coach with Lynch and Sherman leaving and wanting to leave? I do think they had a lot to do with it. But it wasn't about anything racial. Well, I think some people thought, well, I just didn't want to see the black guy get the glory. There is a personnel call that, and it's the same train of thought that haunted the Falcons in this year's Super Bowl. What do I mean? I mean this. Because I asked Dan Quinn about that in my interview, which I need to break out. But there is a thought, and Quinn has said this in an interview, and so has Pete Carroll, that they had the right matchup. You know, matchup football. Okay? In Carroll's case, they thought they had the right matchup, and so the pass would work, as opposed to a run. In the Super Bowl, in the 51st, excuse me, in the 49th Super Bowl, but the problem was that 48th Super Bowl. I apologize, but the problem was that problem was brought back to our attention in the 51st Super Bowl. Excuse me, we haven't had the 52nd Super Bowl yet. In the 51st Super Bowl, when Kyle Shanahan and Dan Quinn, Coach Quinn, believed they had the right matchup on that 3rd and 1, so they threw. What happened? They got, Ryan got knocked on his keister. So it's a matter of an idea of matchups over a situation that can really get you into trouble. Bill Walsh would not have done that, the late legendary coach of the Niners. He would have said, we're up 28-3 or 25-3. We're going to run the ball and we're going to muscle down the clock. Joe Bugle, the offensive line coach for the Raiders at the time, would have said the same thing. For Joe Bugle, the offensive line coach for the Redskins at the time, would have said the same thing with John Riggins. We're just going to muscle down the clock. That idea of muscling down the clock, if you think you've got personnel you can throw on, you're not going to try muscling down the clock because you're throwing. But in the old way of thinking, they didn't care if you had run-oriented personnel on the field. They expected you to have it. They're going to out-muscle you to take the clock down and get out of town. This is a problem, okay? It's a problem. Let's see here. Zinni question, if you win mayor, what is the first thing you would do? If I won mayor, the first thing that I would do is I would have an event to bring Oakland together, because Oakland is divided, and I would do something, I would call it Oakland Sharing the Vision. We did it in 90, and I think we need to do it again. I think we need to do it anyway, regardless of what I decide to do. Oakland Sharing the Vision in 1990 was an event held at the Oakland Convention Center, right behind the Oakland Marriott. We used to call it the Oakland Marriott, still do. And it brought together 500 people on a Saturday to brainstorm about goals and objectives for the city into the 21st century. And in a number of different areas. But the real beauty of Oakland Sharing the Vision is that it brought in people who were concerned about Oakland, and it forged new friendships, many lasting for decades. Libby Schaff's parents became my godparents over time because of that. That's how I got to know them. That's how I met Libby. That's how I met the late David Glover, the executive director of the Oakland Citizens Committee for Urban Renewal. David, in turn, introduced me to Phil Tagami, who was a real estate broker at the time, working for a guy named Randy Berger, and involved in something called adoptive reuse development. I can go on and on and on. But all of my relationships, my most important ones through my history in Oakland since 1990, started at Oakland Sharing the Vision. And I want to bring that back to Oakland. And I want to do that more than once. You know? I want to make sure that we have events, including one tentpole event that brings everybody together. Because the internet has split us up, along with generational change and everything else. So, there you go. Joseph Jones. How is Jerry Jones? Sorry about that. Oh, let's see here. I'm sorry I missed that. How is Jerry Jones' involvement with the Raiders not a conflict of interest with him being owner of a different franchise? That's a very good question that needs an answer. As far as his hospitality company overseeing the Raiders' new stadium, I get you. Paul Dog, why would Stan Kroenke want the Raiders to move too close to his team in LA? He had to vote for relocation due to his move already, felt obligated. Another good question. Let's see. The Mannings, Roethlisbergers, and Brady's on morals and values NFL brand. Joshua Gonzalez says, your thoughts on the latest Steelers chairman, Dan Reed. Steelers are a class organization, and I have had the opportunity to meet Mr. Rooney. Very nice, always asks you how you're doing, and a man that just commands respect. That's when I think of Dan Rooney. And obviously ran a great organization in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their family's done so as well. Steve Collins says secret ballot would have went Oakland's way. That's right. Golden State Raiders says, I'm going to sleep, President. Hey, good night, Golden State. See ya. Yeah, I'm going to sign off at, I started at 10. I'm going to sign off at midnight. Because we've gone for how long? This clock is always wrong. It says 1 hour and 7. Oh, it's 107 minutes. It's got to be longer than that. Let me see the live stream. It's got to be longer than that. Corey Brown says, Patriots owner says Jerry was down there going crazy in terms of being involved in everything. Wow. I think the A's will stay at the Coliseum. I'm kind of hoping to go to Howard Terminal. Rick Rice. Kronos and Jones wave P.F. Chang's in front of Mark Davis, and he followed. I kind of like P.F. Chang's myself. Unspoken voices. Money allows Jerry to make decisions and jumping over policy and laws. But he's not a billionaire in the classic sense of the word. He has a powerful personality. Okay? And he's media friendly. The reason why we hear about Jerry a lot is because Jerry is accessible to the media. More so than a number of other owners. So that, coupled with his involvement, you get what you get. That said, Jerry Jones is a Hall of Fame representative of the National Football League. And we have to respect that. We have to honor that. You think the Raiders still have a chance to stay? Yes, a big one. Oh, huge. Enormous. But I also think there are things that we can do. And one of them, first of all, don't give up the idea. Secondly, whenever you're on Twitter, how many of you have Twitter accounts? Can you send me an email with your Twitter account so I can make sure I'm following you all back? If you're not on Twitter, please get on Twitter. But when you're on Twitter, make sure you tag the Raiders. Oh, better yet, tag Jim Irsay and Jed York repeatedly and let them know you want the Raiders to stay in Oakland. There you go. Do that. Don't give up sending the message the Raiders should be in Oakland. My thoughts on Sean McDermott as a coach, I think I kind of expressed that earlier. But I think that how well McDermott does depends on how he connects with black players as a young white head coach. If he is too authoritarian, he will fail. And however, if he's too authoritarian, he's got to be really good at X's and O's to make up for that. Because if he's too authoritarian, he yells at them, and he makes them feel like he's treating them like some sort of slave, he's not gonna get anything out of them, because there are too many of us as African Americans who are hypersensitive to that kind of tone. Okay, but if his schemes work, that buys him some time. That's what happened with Gruden. However, if he's a coach that listens to the players, and I'm not saying a guy that has to have a black affect. That's kind of phoniness won't fly at all either. Just be yourself, okay? But listen to the players. Listen. You listen to a person, you have their heart and you have their mind. Then they deliver for you, and that's regardless of color. But it's particularly true with us because racism is a form of rejection and expression of disrespect. And we are hypersensitized to that. You understand? Just being real with you all. Just give you a real answer to an honest question. So there you go. Okay. Now, Dustin Scott, City of Oakland should sue the Raiders for the money to pay off Mount Davis the amount of cash it will take to demolish it and bring back the original structure of the baseball configuration. Interesting idea. Crawford 371. Crawford, how are you? Circuit court judges could scare the NFL straight. Yes, that would be interesting. I agree. And Maniac has another great question. Why hasn't Bank of America made a statement yet? We're all waiting. Corey Brown, I still don't think... Hey, by the way, do you realize what this Thursday is? It's the meeting of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority. Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to have Stephanie on for an hour from 10 to 11, and from 11 to 12, we'll talk about that. Unless I get a wild hair and decide to maybe start the live stream early and talk about that a little bit, or do something. But that's definitely an important day. It really is. Yeah, Paul Dog is right, Maniac. That's a great question. Great question. Corey Brown says, I still don't think the Oakland and the Alameda County people are aggressive enough to follow through with anything that could keep the Raiders. They have a defeated mentality now. I think the problem, I hope you're wrong. I know there's a struggle there. But I think they're going to surprise you in the end. In the end. Now, part of that's wishful thinking on my part, but there you go. Rick Rice. Didn't you see him in the game? He handed his glasses to his grandson. He wiped them and handed them back. I didn't see that. Joshua Gonzalez. Is T.O. Hall of Famer? Yes. If so, why is he being kept out? I think because of... John Marks is here. How are you, John? I think it's because of his relationship with some in the media, which is really the wrong thing to do. It really is. Miguel Rose. Why aren't Cliff Branch, Tom Flores, and Jim Plunkett in the NFL Hall of Fame yet? Excellent question. And not only that, is the Hall of Fame a place also for executives? I think it is. So we should put Amy Trask there. Hey, Amy Trask for the NFL Hall of Fame. Let's start that campaign. I like that idea. Because I think Amy's done a lot for Oakland. She's been a great representative for the Raiders in the league. And she was present at a time when women weren't given a chance, but Al Davis did give her a chance, and she excelled at it. So I think something like that is deserved. And I'm willing to fight about that one. Dustin Scott. I give Oakland credit. They are just like D.C., the District of Columbia, straight up told Dan Snyder the franchise will never be in D.C. proper with their racist name. Yep. Unspoken Voices, how you doing? Skip has issues with him. Has issues with who? I missed that one. Let's see here. Oh, Skip Bayless, you mean? Skip has issues with everybody. Skip Bayless, you got issues with everybody. Except me, by the way. See, I remember Skip Bayless from when I was an undergraduate at Texas Arlington. And I used to read his column, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We used to call it the Startlegram. The sky is falling. The Startlegram. Anyway. Yeah. Zinni, let's see. You should have Amy on. I should. I invited her. I guess I've got to go through her agent or whatever. Zinni, question. Do you actually think Mark Davis is... missed that one. Is upset that he had to move? Oh, do I think he's upset that he's taking that he is. Do I think he's taking it hard? Yeah, I think he definitely is taking it hard. Absolutely. Bill Walter, how are you, Bill? Hi, Zenny. Have you heard anything about Adelson having a very good relationship with the Bank of America and still maybe quietly involved in the Vegas Stadium deal? That wouldn't surprise me. I haven't heard anything, but it's worth checking into. In fact, I think I know who I can ask. With Tio, I got you. Melvin Lovejoy. Dream guess would be Amy Trask. I agree. Maniac 5900 would make it harder for the Raiders to leave if they win the Super Bowl. In fact, I'm going to tweet out Amy right now and tell her. I'm going to tweet this out and let's say Amy Trask for NFL Hall of Fame. That's and let me copy this and get that out of there. And go down to Twitter. Find Amy Trask's Twitter account. There's Amy. We follow each other, by the way. So she's always spying on me. Anyway. Let's see here. I think I'll send her a message. Let's see here. By YouTube, we think you should be in NFL Hall of Fame. There. So I put that out on her message, and now I'm going to put this out there for all to see. Now, there. Let's see. Let's see here. Talk for NFL Hall of Fame. Oh, NFL HOF. There we go. Yeah, I did it. That was fun. Let's see. Zitty, do you think Bank of America signs could be a sign that they could be potentially pull out a deal? Yeah, I do. Because normally you expect an announcement, someone carrying the torch, walking down and saying, hey, look, we've got this in our hands. But I can tell you what the problem is. And the problem is, it's not hard to figure out. It's the amount of money Bank of America wants to carve out to pay off its loan versus what the Raiders are willing to give up. That's been the problem from day one with this, when I ran the spreadsheet. And I said that the Raiders would have to give up, from one scenario, 72% of their expected naming rights revenue to service that bond debt alone. Man. That's not looking good, folks. You've got two problems. You've got Bank of America on the one hand. You've got the low stadium hotel tax rate on the other. It's not looking good. Not looking good. Those only. Oh, and by the way, still don't have the land. And notice how, look, land analysis don't take that long. Something is wrong with Russell Road, folks. Something is wrong with Russell Road. Hey, Zinni, Amy is now CEO of Ice Cube's basketball league. Oh, is that right? Good for her. I'll try to get her on. Okay. Do they really need to have a formal announcement? The NFL and the Raiders are on the record that BMV is uninvolved. It's always good business to have a formal announcement. Just to say we're involved. You don't do that otherwise. I mean, once everybody else has done it, every other financing organization's put out an announcement they're working with, Team A or the Vikings or, for U.S. Bank, for example. Why is this situation any different? I don't see the logic there. It's different when you don't have a deal yet. It's different when you don't really have something. What you have is an intent to form a deal. You understand? You asked, Jerry Jones won't let this fall apart, will he? He's not God. You can do as much as you can do, but at the end of the day, if something isn't structurally designed to work, you cannot turn water into wine. Especially down there. Let's see here. Agree 916 or the NFL, unfortunately. Is Tagliabue a Hall of Famer? Definitely. Paul Tagliabue ushered in the era of the construction of the modern NFL stadium and the era of the giant Super Bowl game. I remind you of this, folks. Okay, that when Commissioner Tagliabue came in, starting in 1996, the Super Bowls went from these kind of handshake agreements to full large contracts. Affected my Super Bowl bid. Bidding for a Super Bowl is really an exercise in dealing with contracts for a lot of things, and that's necessary to protect the league and yourself as a member of the host committee. Okay, that's really important to know. But Tagliabue ushered in the era. He formed the foundation for the modern NFL as we know it today. Let's see here. Miguel Rose. Hey, Zinni, why isn't Jimmy Johnson in the NFL Hall of Fame yet? He also deserves to be in the NFL Hall of Fame. I don't think he's been advanced that way. I think part of it has to do with his relationship with Jones on the South End. And also he had success in the league, but it wasn't sustained that he left the league. So does he deserve consideration? Unquestionably. He'll get there one day, I think, but who is more deserving than Jimmy Johnson to be in the Hall of Fame, and why? I think T.O. is more deserving right now, certainly, among others. But it's a very good question. I think it's worth considering. And I'm not trying to put down Jimmy Johnson in any way. He was a revolutionary in coaching. Do you realize Jimmy Johnson was the first NFL head coach to have an all-black offensive line, including the center? Because there's an idea that the center, because it was the real nerve center, the brains of the offensive line, that couldn't be a black person. And Jimmy Johnson just obliterated that idea in a quiet way. He didn't have a ceremony saying, I'm putting out an African-American offensive line, and then we're going to have, the center's going to be black and all this. No. He just did it. And they were good. And they won Super Bowls. That's all you need. That's all you need. So, Jones should not be a... let's see. Octavio says Jones shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. He didn't contribute to the better of the game. But he's there. And I argued that he did. Jerry Jones does things that are not popular at the time, but you turn around and realize we needed that. He challenged the NFL's marketing system at a time when it needed to be challenged to free up for the teams. Oh, we've got, let's see here, Federico, thank you. I dream that Oakland Raiders and A's will host the Super Bowl and World Series, plus World Cup, FIFA, as well as Olympic Games. Thank you, and thank you for the contribution. See, folks, I can't miss that, right? That is right there. I cannot miss that. You see that on Super Chat? It's like, boom. Federico just said, boom. There it is. I like that. Thank you. It's in green. I can't miss it. It stops everything for a second. Boom. I like that. And I got $5 I'm going to use to buy coffee. Thank you, Federico. Very much. Boom. I like that. Nice. Nice. Now, Joshua Gonzalez says, will Cutler or Kaepernick get an NFL job this year? I'm voting for, Kaepernick. Paul Dog, Federico has big pockets. He does. Dario Salvador says, Tom Floyd's in the Hall of Fame needs to happen. I agree. It needed to happen some time ago. I like Federico's dream. The Raiders and the A's will host the Super Bowl and World Series. World Cup, FIFA, as well as the Olympic Games. I like that. I like that. That was my stadium was designed to do. Maniac, do you think the NFL owners wanted this because they wanted Mark to fail and them knowing that Las Vegas was a bust all along just so he can sell the team and have somebody to get something done in Oakland? That's a possible. I do think there's a possible. That's possible, yeah. Joshua Gonzalez, Don Coryell Hall of Fame. Yes! The father of the modern offense, not named Sid Gilman. Yes. John Marks, Cliff Branch doesn't deserve Hall of Fame due to his involvement with Mark Davis in Las Vegas. Oh, I don't know about that. I want to give Cliff his due, okay? Speed kills. 21 Branch, speed kills. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Zinni, what deal has to sign an NFL team owner to be under land agreement? We need land, banking, city bonds, taxpayer. Oh, you mean in terms of Las Vegas? Is that what you're talking about? I'm going to guess it's Las Vegas. Okay. And then 916 says, is this whole Mark Davis being torn on Las Vegas really true? Scott Winter said otherwise. Scott Winter doesn't know Mark Davis. I'll just leave it at that. Scott Winter doesn't know Mark Davis. Okay. But I can tell you the answer is yes. Now, John Marks says, Miguel Rose, John Marks, I disagree. Cliff Branch, yeah, I agree. Hey, John, how are you? Joshua Gonzalez, you think running quarterbacks don't get calls because they are perceived as stronger than pocket passers? No, I think it has to do with, well, let's really have an intelligent conversation about that. I think that's worth a breakout session with, someone to talk about that. It'd be cool to get Mike Silver on or somebody to talk about that. But I'll say this. Russell, the Seattle Seahawks quarterback is a running quarterback, all right? And Russell Wilson. But you don't think of him as that. You think of him as a passer. You think of him as a passer who is set up to run when it's convenient to do so. That's the way it should be. And he's not going out of the league by any means, but he's in the right design. It doesn't put him in harm's way. It gives him the opportunity to excel by designing plays that offer the run as an escape. Okay? So, let's see here. 916, if the A's, no. Oh, excuse me. Crocodile Tears from Mark says, Paul Dog. Hey, John Santos, how are you? John Mark says, maybe Miguel Rose. Paul Dog says, Crocodile Tears from Mark. Crawford 371. If the A's can speed up the process and announce their new plans for away from the Coliseum, things will change soon with the Coliseum site and the Raiders in the NFL. True. 916 says, I'm not trying to come off as an a-hole, but he predicted almost everything correctly while you were wrong on the relocation. Actually, I wasn't wrong, and I don't even know who you're talking about. But the whole point is that the relocation hasn't happened. The NFL voted, sure, but it hasn't happened. If the relocation falls apart, then what? Not only that, here's this. Someone made the stupid comment that, and it was stupid, that I was wrong on the SNTIC, and I wasn't. I followed every single hearing, and I said, hey, look, someone would say this. They would say, on July, I think, 5th, they're going to get to the Raiders issue. And it wasn't on the agenda. 916, all anyone had to do was read the SNTIC agenda. All I did was say, hey, look, read the agenda. So you could tell what's happening because it was on the agenda. So because I would say that, I was right more than once. A lot of people run around who are, I'm a blogger, not a journalist, for this reason. I read documents. But what happens is that journalists go around and they ask people, and what happens when you ask a person something, you become automatically trapped in their spin. That's unavoidable. You quote something, you say, oh, Jerry Jones told me this would happen. You become trapped in their spin. I don't. I read documents. My background is in urban planning and public finance, so I approach this problem from that perspective. I know how to run numbers. I could just as easily be involved in a project as report on it. I'm different. Okay? So, in terms of my being wrong about what the NFL did, hey, if it were a secret ballot, Oakland would have come out ahead. It wasn't. But I've said this, and I'll say it again, and it's this, that a lot of you place the vote as the end. In other words, that's it. It's over. It ain't over. This sucker could go south in so many different ways, and it just looks bad. And there's, again, the Raiders have nothing. So you tell me, the Raiders, I know one thing, the Raiders are playing in the Coliseum. They're not playing in Vegas. Okay? Vegas ready for them? No, not even Sam Boyd Stadium. Will Sam Boyd be ready next year? It's not just the stadium. It's the lights and everything else. And the money. Where the Raiders going to get that from? Who's going to pay it? Okay? All right. And you weren't coming off as an a-hole. You were asking a good question. Nice to see. Yeah, thanks. Oh, yeah, thanks, 916. I appreciate that. Thank you. And not only that, let me say something else, 916. The people that are criticizing me, you know, I have been nice to everybody. I have tried to have people on. I've interviewed a number of people. So no one can say I had Jim Thomas on to that tonight. No one can say that I've been, directly mean to people, but they've been directly mean to me. That's documented. I have come back when I felt it was necessary to defend myself, or when I was, my healing. I was like, hey, I didn't like that. That's only human. Just saying. Joshua Gonzalez, do you think Gronk is treated different with his partying attitude because he is white? Yes. Because if he were black and into rap and all that, there would be all this criticism about him and all that. So unquestionably, they let him get away with murder. And he gets all these commercials. Yeah, absolutely. Dustin Scott, Mark Davis got asked to the prom by two girls. One was driving a rented Porsche Vegas, and the other was driving a fully paid for Toyota Camry, Oakland. He chose the rented Porsche and is now regretting it. I like that. Dustin Scott, another classic comment of the night. Stephen Collins, they don't like being told truths. And that's true. Why, I don't know. Because it makes for better reporting. What some people forget is that anyone can do media now because of the ability to make your own blogs, broadcast your own message, basically have what in the past cost thousands and thousands of dollars to do, quite literally in your hands for no money at all. That's powerful. And some have not made that transition to understand that anyone can do media, and all they have to do is borrow the practices of the past and bring them to today and move forward. Now, let's see here. Who am I missing? 916, do you think it would have been smart to renovate the State Coliseum instead of building a brand new? Yeah, my original plan, which Mark Davis didn't want, involved tearing down the circular part of the Coliseum and then using the east side, which is more up to date, as the model for the rest of the stadium, improving the east side, breaking up Mount Davis so it's on two decks, okay, and giving a fan enclosure much along the lines of what is at the stadium CenturyLink that the Seattle Seahawks play in, something like that. I was and am a big proponent of that approach because the material of the Coliseum is so strong that the stadium has, I don't care what anyone says, withstood one of the largest earthquakes we've had in our generation. The Loma Prieta earthquake. It came out without a scratch, without damage. No one talks about that except me. And I repeat that. Sorry. At any rate, Barry Lee, like what they did in Chicago, Barry Lee. Exactly. In fact, the Coliseum should be considered a historical landmark. Rick Ross, Zinni, you're a man of people. I try. Paul Dog, Zinni, do you believe the local media blew it too? Yeah, they were completely out of it. Trying to tote the Raider line, not understanding what was going on, this mindless groupthink rather than anything that's really honest. Absolutely. They seemed like they wanted the Raiders out of here. It's ridiculous. Did Terrell Davis deserve to be a Hall of Famer even though he had a short career? Yes. Let's see here. It's 12:17. I'm going to go until 12:30. So that'll be 2.5 hours. Let's see here. Thank you, Barry Lee, for your great work as a moderator. Thank you all very much for that. Thank you, Mr. Marks, as well. 831 Scott, if the Raiders only play next season in Oakland and go somewhere else to play after that, then the Las Vegas deal falls through. Do you see them coming back to Oakland? Yeah, I do. This is still the best place for them. It would be foolish for them not to. It really would. Maniac 5900. Do you also? So have you found out why Mark Davis didn't go to his minority owner for any help at all? No, I haven't found that out. I'm glad you reminded me of that. Thank you for that. I slipped on that one. I apologize. Joshua Gonzalez says Jared Goff is a bust. I disagree. I think Jared, in the right situation, can be an outstanding quarterback. What do I think of the new? I haven't seen the new uniforms. Hold on a second. Let me do the magic of the internet. Clear that up right now. Hold on a second. Let's take a look at the Detroit Lions Lions uniforms. And we'll all have a look at them. Let's see here. Detroit Lions. And let's see here. Let's see, we've got image Detroit Lions new uniforms. Okay, images. And there they are. Let's have a look at them. The Lions. I'm going to bring you down here so you can take a look at what I'm looking at. Got it up, Zinni. See you tomorrow. Gotta go. Okay, see you, Raiders. Thanks a lot, man. See ya. For participating. Here they are. Okay. Lions. It's got a tough look, doesn't it? It's Matt Stafford. Trying to find a good picture. That picture's decent. I like it. The color, it makes it hard to. That's Barry Sanders. Here's one. They're okay. It kind of reminds me of the Seahawks a little bit with that side logo. They're interesting. I kind of wanted something a bit more, I don't know, imaginative, I guess. Interesting. It doesn't really, I don't know, it doesn't do much for me. It's kind of like, yeah, okay. I mean, it says they're the Lions. It's, color rush, right? But I don't know. I like the old, it's okay. It's okay. What do you guys think of them? That's the most important question. What do you think? I'm stopping in 10 minutes, folks. So what do you think happens over the next 2 or 3 months? We get a picture, I guess you mean in Vegas, of the whole land situation. We get a better idea of what's going to happen with the A's. And I think we get some more of a handle on whether the Raiders can really make a go of it in Vegas, as I say that it's going to be hard for them to do if they can't. Steve Collins, redoing the Coliseum would be awesome. We have such a history there. Yeah, it really is. It deserves to be a national landmark rather than just torn down. I think John Madden had it right. It's 961. So what do you think, he asked, Paul Dog, NFL reaching, trying to make more money. Joseph Jones, they look like freaking Power Rangers. Yeah, they do. Joshua Gonzalez, do you think Jerry Jones is keeping Jimmy Johnson out of the Hall of Fame? Good question. Dustin Scott, the NFL has no interest in marketing to millennials. That will be their downfall. Dustin, that is the third excellent comment you've made. And not only that, I believe that they don't have interest in marketing to immigrants, people who come here from other countries who are used to soccer. NFL websites are not in 24 different languages. Okay? The Raiders have Hispanic language and that's it. But French, Mandarin, no. Where's that worldwide reach via the internet? It's not there. Or mobile. It's not there. No. Paul Dog says, Dustin is the viewer of the day. Dustin, ding, you get the reward. Other than Federico. We have to, hey look, Federico made an investment. So in honor of the billionaire class, we have to thank Federico and put him alongside Dustin. He spent $5 billion. My God, $5 billion. Well, it's $5, okay, but still. Oh my God. Yeah, he's the deep pockets man of the day. It's the deep pockets man. That's right. Federico's got the deep pockets. He's the billionaire of the bunch. Are there any franchise quarterbacks this year? Now, I'm going to release my mock draft this week, but I'm going to say something that people are going to laugh at. I think Deshaun Watson is that franchise quarterback. I really do. And he's the proven winner of the bunch. He's got that intangible quality about him. He's a great passer. He always makes that play that makes you stop and go, whoa, what did he just do? I think he's the franchise guy. I'll also watch Joshua Dobbs of Tennessee. Okay. Mitch Trubisky, I'm not sold on. And I'm still going to leave the jury out for him because he's not. I mean, look, it's not every day that you are like Carson Wentz and you get to play in exactly the offense that fits your skills. With a coach that does exactly what you need as a quarterback in terms of setting out the proper scheme and personnel to get you a win. Doug Peterson is an outstanding NFL head coach. We have to say that. Without Peterson, Carson Wentz does not do as well as he did last year or as well as he will do this year. There. But will Mitch Trubisky get that? Yeah, I doubt it. No. Hey, you gotta go. Hey, thanks, everybody. I'm stopping. It's 12:24, so I'm gonna start saying my goodbyes on the way to 12:30 and wind everybody down. I'll see you guys. Oh, Joshua Gonzalez asked what I think of Joshua Dobbs, and he said he's going to get his degree in engineering while playing in the NFL. Do you wish more NFL players valued education like him? Many do. I think the idea that a lot don't is overblown. Many do, and I think what he's doing is outstanding. But since the media likes to report on the bad things that people do, that's all you hear about. You don't hear about the great things that NFL players are doing. That's also partly the NFL's own fault. Although the NFL has made up for that by promoting, what's the offensive line guy that has the PhD in engineering, for example? Okay. Good night, Paul Dog. Good night, everybody. 12:40. Good night, Miguel. Good night, everybody. Hey, Zinni, any Raider events in support of staying in Oakland soon? There's one coming up on the 23rd. I had to get Godfather Grizz on here to talk about it. Good night, everybody. What do you think the lease terms will look like when the Raiders officials meet with? They're not ready. The lease isn't ready for the Las Vegas Stadium Authority. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Steven, Mr. Collins, for your participation. Good night, Mr. Jones. Good night, Mr. Marks, Raider Kuko, Dave, Joshua, Dustin, everybody. If I haven't seen Victoria in a while, come back, Victoria. Come back. Yes. Thank you. It was a great show. Thank you to Jim Thomas of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch for giving us an outstanding point of view and having a fun conversation. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Good night, everybody. It's now 12:26 in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, 9:26 p.m. Pacific, and it's 11 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock in the mountains, and you get the idea. Yeah. Next show is tomorrow night. I'm going to start at 11:30. No, excuse me, 11:30. 11:30. Good night, everybody. Not 10 is a little. I don't have a guest. I may do a special live stream because I'm in Georgia and we have that special election coming up. So, in fact, let me strike that. I'm going to do a different live stream earlier for about maybe an hour on the outcome of the special election. Like, say, around 8 o'clock or something like that as the polls close. Because I think that's an important deal. I hope for a good turnout, but given the way things have gone, I'm skeptical. John Ossoff down here is the front runner. He was by far. But the turnout's a big deal. If people don't come out, well, here's the thing. Even if with low turnout he still wins, that's the bigger story. So let's see what happens. All right? Good night. Yeah, good night, everybody. Oh, good night. And, no, Gaspar, sorry, we don't do that. So, there you go. Anyway, cool. Good night, Barry. Thank you, all moderators. Federico, I'll send you my view of Oakland Raiders update, Raiders new look. Thank you very much. Thank you. Spurs up 2-0. Jeez. Gave you follow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Damon. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Peace on you. Peace. Oh, Gasper is just joking. Got it. Okay, Gasper, thanks. Thank Thank you, Gasper. I was a little too, I apologize for being so sensitive. I think sometimes I'm like, and I got to work on that. Okay, so I'll work on that and learn to be a lot more ha 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 and a lot less. Sorry about that. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm just sensitive because of the whole YouTube thing, but whatever. See you all tomorrow. And hey, if I have a special guest, I may start a little early. Stay tuned for that. No, I'm not. I need to go to the gym. See you guys. All right. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you. Appreciate that. Good night, everybody. Thank you for your time as well, Federico, and thank you for your billions. $5 billion you contributed to the cause. My God, we're going to be one of the most powerful media countries in the world. Amazing. Media companies, excuse me. I can't even say it properly. I'm so shocked. $5 billion. Oh my God. Well, it's just $5, but still, hey, $5 is $5 billion. I'll take it. It's great. Thank you all. Thank you. Oh, that was a lot of fun. Lots of fun. Thank you. Gasper's from Argentina. Welcome. Welcome, Gasper. Spread the word in Argentina. Thank you. Yo, Zinni, if you make mayor, I'll be your DC lobbyist. Dustin, I like that idea. I like that. Stay tuned, everybody. It's 12:30. I'm signing off. Good night. And as Edwin R. Monroe would say, good luck. Thank you.